Okay, hi everyone. Today, just a little bit of context. Because we are embarking on drawing graphs, so part of drawing graphs actually involves drawing the axis as well. So as you can see, right, previously, your other works have the axis over there given to you. Okay, but there may be some cases where you need to draw your own axis. So before we go on to how do we draw the x and y axis, we need to learn about scales and how do we put the scales into those axes over there. Alright, so let us take a look at this particular worksheet over here, and let us go through the graph paper and how do we put down our axis. Now, so in general over here, the graph paper is actually split to very distinct boxes. Actually, you can see that this is actually one big box over here, right? Over here, this is actually one big box, and each of these boxes is actually made of smaller boxes. Okay. Now, to add on to what we are doing here, actually, this length over here, right? To this length over here is actually 2 cm. Okay, so this full length over here is 2 cm. So actually, where is 1 cm? 1 cm is actually somewhere like this over here, or maybe let me put it like this, 1 cm, right? So it is this length over here in the middle. This one is actually 1 cm. One small box is 1 cm. Okay, and two boxes like this, right? Two big boxes like this is actually 2 cm. Alright, now so with this, let's take a look at the units over here, and let us see how do we draw the units. Alright, so here, in order to represent 1 cm to 1 unit, alright, so 1 cm means it is going to talk about this width over here, right? The width would be like this. Okay, and we're going to count 1 unit for every boxes. So 1 cm, I'm going to make my marks every 1 cm. Okay, and 1 unit means that my increment is in 1 unit. So let's say if I start from negative, let's say if I start from 0, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you see this? Right? So in the same way, going backwards, I have negative 1, negative 2. Right? So this is what we mean by 1 cm to 1 unit. Right? So the gaps are 1 cm apart, and each gaps is actually 1 unit. So let us dive a bit deeper into what this means. Alright? So let's say that if you need a final value over here, so what is actually this one over here? Right? You can actually see that we are made up of 4 different parts, and each one of these will be 0.2, you have 0.4, you have 0.6, 0.8. Right? You can divide it into smaller parts. Alright, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, and so on. Alright, so this is what we mean by 1 cm to 1 unit, and if you want to find the final reading, you have to go a bit finer. Alright, let's go one more step finer, and let's say if you need 0.5. So where is actually 0.5? Right here in the middle. You see this? Right, this one over here is 0.5. Let's say if you want 0.1, 0.1 is actually over here, 0.1. Okay, so this is what we mean by having 1 cm to 1 unit, and how do we read the smaller values over there. Okay, now next, let's take a look at the next one where it is 1 cm to 2 units. Alright, 1 cm to 2 units. So same thing, we are going to go 1 cm for each gap. So this means that every gap over here is going to be 1 cm. Right, every gap that I'm going to draw is 1 cm, but now instead of jumping 1 unit, I'm going to jump to 2 units. So jump to 2 units, 2 units, next 2 units, next plus 2, plus 2, plus 2, to the left, minus 2, minus 2 more, like that. Okay, so this means every 1 cm we are representing 2 units. So what if you want to read the final notes, right? What if you want to read the final ones? So over here, let's take a look and see. Let's zoom in and see. Now, what about each of these boxes? We have 5 boxes over here. So 2 divided by 5, right, is going to give us 0.4. So this means this is 0.4. This is 0.8. This is going to be 1.2. This is going to be 1.6. And the next one is 2.0. And we go on 2.4, right? 2.8, 3.6, sorry, 3.2, and then 3.6. You see this? Okay, you see this, right? Next, going backwards, this would be negative 0.4. This is going to be negative 0.8. This is going to be negative 1.2. This is going to be negative 1.6. So each of the gap is 0.4. Each of these small boxes is going to be 0.4. Now, do we need to write all this down? Actually, don't need. We just need to label the big ones over there as according to this scale that is being represented up here. Alright, so what do we need is actually this one, right? 1 cm to 2 units. So every 1 cm you make a mark, 2 units you just count 2 by 2. Right? So moving on, I think you can get the hang of this. 1 cm to 5 units. So over here we can draw gaps for every 1 cm like that. Right? 5 unit means if I start from 0, 5 units next is 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 to the other end, minus 5 minus 5. Right? So you see what's going on here? Every 1 cm you make the gap, and then each gap is going to be 5 units. Now next one, 1 cm to 0.5 units. So over here 0, right? And I'm going to make marks for every cm, right? Alright, so over here the next gap is 0.5 plus 0.5 will be 1, another 0.5, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. The other way around, negative 0.5, negative 1. Right? So if you were to read the final steps over here, you can see that actually each of these, very nicely, each of these is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, right? Each of these is very nicely like this. Okay, so this is all we have for 1 cm, alright? So whenever we say 1 cm to something, you just need to plot 1 cm gaps, and you just put count by the how many units for each gap. Alright, let us move on to the second set over here where we have 2 cm for certain things. Okay, so 2 cm means that every gap is going to take me 2 big boxes. So let's say if I have 1 over here, so the next gap will be, this is 1 cm, the next one will be 2 cm over here. Right? Another 2 cm over here, another 2 cm over there. Right? Next one, count backwards, we have this one over here. So how would the scale work? 0, 1, 2, 3. So every gap there will be 1 unit. Okay, so if you want to read the final print, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 and so on. Okay, but you don't need to write all this. We just need to look at the bigger one, which is 2 cm. This is really 2 cm, and the difference is 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit. Okay? Alright, next one. Let's take a look at the next axis, 2 cm to 2 units. So I will have something like this, right? 2 cm marks over here. Let's say if I start from 0, 2 units next would be 2, 4, 6. And 2 units before, negative 2. Right? So I guess you get the hang of it, yeah? So let's move on, 2 cm to 5 units. Same thing. The gaps are 2 cm wide, right? We have 0, 5, 10, 15. The other way, negative 5. Okay, so let's see how do we look final over here. Alright, so 0 to 5, right? Halfway here is definitely 2.5, right? And because we have 10 gaps over here, so 5 divided by 10 would be 0.5. Then you got 1.0, 1.5, then 2.0. Do you see this? Do you see how this works? Okay, so this is what we are going to do with the scales, right? Break the scales down, and let's say if you need to plot a final one, yeah, then you can see that. Right, last one over here that we are going to do, 2 cm to 0.5 units. So same thing, 2 cm marks. Right, let's put the 2 cm marks over there. If you start with 0, the next one is going to be 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, and the other way around, negative 0.5. Okay, so let's compare and contrast this set versus the set on top, the 1 cm sets. As you can see, the 1 cm sets up there, right up there, right, beyond up there, over here, right, the 1 cm sets over here. Now over the gaps over there are 1 cm, right? But for the 2 cm sets over here, the gaps over here are 2 cm. So you see the difference in the gap, right? I want you to see the difference in the gap. They are like this. Okay, so the ones above are 1 cm, the ones here are 2 cm. right? So there's a difference between the top and this part. Okay, so with this, let us move on to the 4 cm ones. Right, so note that this tool is actually not in your worksheet. It's just an additional thing that I've put in here. But no, not to worry, we just move on to the 4 cm ones over here. So very clearly 4 cm ones. So let's say if we start here, 4 cm later is going to be like this, right? The next 4 cm, the next 4 cm, next 4 cm, and so on. So if we start with 0, this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, this is going to be 3 to 1 unit, and the other way is negative 1 unit. Okay? And let's say we have another set of 4 cm axis, right? And each of the units, right? Each of it is 2 units. The next one is the next 2 units, next 2 units, before 2 units before. So you can see that actually both of these, they have the same gaps, right? The same big 4 cm gaps. It's just that each of the gap represent a different quantity. So on top, each of the gap is 1 unit. This one over here, each of the gap is 2 units. Right, so this ends this video over here on how do we draw the gaps and how do we label our axis, so that it will help us in locating the point to draw our graph. So that's all for today. Thank you so much and have a nice day.